So this is what happens. You get married, you have children, and at some point you begin worrying about who will educate your children. To whom will you entrust your precious child's education? And this is what happened to us. We considered it all, from live-in nannies to home care, daycare, public school, private school, even homeschooling. And that's really the question that we're asking today. How do you decide who will educate your children and how you will educate your children? And would you consider homeschooling? Our two guests today are two parents, husband and wife, who've decided to homeschool their children. And we've also invited an official from the Ontario Ministry of Education. Now, sadly, there was no one from the ministry that could join us for the taping of this program, but they did send us a statement, and that's where we begin.
Under the Education Act, school boards are responsible for excusing children from attendance at school when homeschooling is provided. Parents or legal guardians are required to notify their local school board in writing of their intention to homeschool, and the board should consider the child to be excused from attendance at school. Parents who are homeschooling are not required to teach the Ontario curriculum, though they may do so. The ministry does not track the graduation of homeschooled students, as the vast majority are not eligible to receive an Ontario secondary school diploma. Many homeschooled students apply to post-secondary institutions with a diploma from another jurisdiction, association, or general educational development certificate.
That was a statement that we received from the Ontario Ministry of Education. Now, the statement also added that if a school board has reasonable grounds to be concerned that the instruction provided in the home is not satisfactory, the board can investigate the matter. So it's clear that parents who choose to homeschool have a right to do so. And we're now joined by two parents who've chosen to do so, Mary and Louis Richard. They have 5 children, and you've been homeschooling them since they were in school. 1994. So 1994. So why did you decide to do the homeschooling option?
Well, I think as parents we realized that it was our responsibility to look at their education and prayerfully discern what path we should take, and how if we could give them, we know that we have to consider giving them the best education that we can. So we looked at all of our options, and we felt that what we had with our background in our faith and all that we had, that we could do this.
Did you think that you would homeschool forever? Or did you kind of let's start homeschooling and see how it goes?
We started as a just testing it out because we weren't sure. It was a new thing to us, and we thought we'll give it a year, and we gave it another year, and then another year, and every year we kind of tried to figure it out. And by the 3rd or 4th year, we realized it's time to make a commitment. Yeah.
Now, and I'm sure you came to that decision together. Now, Louis, you work, and presumably Mary, you stayed at home to homeschool. Do you share the homeschooling responsibilities? How does that work, or how did it work for you?
Well, as much as we could. I mean, if you got a steady job, there's limitations there. You're at work, but for those areas in particular, like my job is I'm a meteorologist, so the physics and math were something that I could offer more. And it was, especially as they got older, where they start to get more complex. It's I kick in more and more. As well, sometimes we did some sessions on weekends with other homeschooling.
I was going to ask you, so did you find that you have to adjust the school schedule so that you could participate?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, kids don't want to do work in the evening anyway, right? But
Saturdays? You made them go to school on Saturday?
Well, they were with friends. We did it as a few families together, so it made it like in a sense an outing for them too.
Okay.
And then they played together after.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we're kind of talking right now about how it works. We get a little bit about how you share. So is it like a normal school day, Mary?
Well, it's interesting because I think I began approaching it as if we were having a school at home. And I put a lot of pressure on myself and the kids to have this very rigorous schedule. And then I learned that really it's not. It's a different approach to education. And we have our certain academics. We discovered, the math and maybe some of the sciences as they got older were more from maybe a textbook with outings added. But a lot of our homeschooling in the younger days was learning through hands-on experience, going out to, you know, parks and outings and
Right.
getting piles of library books and really enjoying the process. And I think that was a big.
Just add a little
Yeah.
bit with what you're saying, the chance to go out. There's lots of homeschoolers in the Winnipeg area, and there's Michelle, there's a lady who organized outings for homeschoolers, and there
Okay,
was
so
all
you
sorts of
come as a
outings,
group.
more than we could do.
Do you follow, how do you figure out what curriculum, is there a set curriculum that you follow? How do you
You
figure
know,
that out?
again, like we started out with a Catholic academy, a homeschooling academy that we thought we'll buy all the books and just get the kids into every grade level. And we discovered that it was, all they were doing was workbooks, and it was, the joy of learning was really diminishing. So we changed our approach, and we did some book work, and then we chose to, you know, just open it up and be more creative.
So
about
then you have more say as to exactly what the curriculum is based on what they should be learning.
Yeah, and there's a lot of word of mouth that goes around, you know,
Okay.
like what we hooked into an excellent math program, an excellent science program, and an excellent writing program, which I only hooked into later, and I heard about it for years, and I never hooked into it till
Right.
later, recently, and I wish I had.
Yeah.
But really, word of mouth is the tried and true. The word goes around amongst
Right.
families, and you find out what's the really good curriculum.
Right.
You know?
Just as an addition, just
Yeah.
you did a little group schooling as well with the children.
You mean with other kids from
Some of that, and sometimes just in the family, where one subject is taken, and they do work at their own level. Like the example I gave.
But
was,
one lesson with everybody together,
right?
kind of
But
thing.
they're at whatever level they're at. That's where they'd respond. Like
Right.
Birds or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Now, Louis. So we know that the Ontario government does not recognize, I guess, the graduation. Or how does it work in Manitoba? How do you?
I think it's similar. What you described, we heard the clip at the beginning, and I think it's basically a similar system.
Yeah.
You get to choose your own curriculum. You don't get an official graduation or diploma from the government of Manitoba.
So your eldest, I guess your three daughters that are now graduated, how did they get into university?
Well, that process, like every university, well, I shouldn't say every, most universities now have an admissions department for homeschooling families.
Really?
So the type of admission is going to be different from, you know, the kids who do have this, you know, official diploma. So what we did was we presented a transcript of all the marks. We explained what our criteria for marking was. We described every course we had taken in paragraphs for each subject, so they could see the actual textbooks.
Right.
And
So they have a sense of
content
of what you're doing.
Yeah, and just to see. Yeah.
Now you've decided to send your 15-year-old son Daniel to a school. Why did you make that choice?
Well, in our family,
You
do you want
kicked
to
him out
answer, or
of
do you want me to
school.
answer?
Well, I'll answer. Probably for lots of reasons. We just thought that would be the best for him, is the bottom line. But I think he was getting antsy at home. His three older sisters have finished homeschooling, they're gone, so even the dynamics in the family is changing.
There's only two of them
There's
left,
just the two of them at home, and I think he needed to get out. He likes to get out. He's very social, and it just all added up.
So basically, I mean, homeschooling may or may not be the right learning environment for all children, and maybe it was okay for him when he was younger, but maybe not now that
so.
he's
I think you just
going
discern
into
it.
grade 11.
Like, you love your kids so much, and you want them to be filled with life, you know? And if you see that, you know, there's something lacking, and you can't provide it at home, but you see that a school maybe can help support that, then you go in that direction.
But that means that Anna, who is 12, will be homeschooled alone.
Right, and that's what we'll have to watch and discern as we go along too, because for her, I anticipate having more time and freedom to actually get involved in more group stuff that she can hook in with friends, you know. Whereas before I was a little more tied down when the kids are at home doing academics in high school, that I couldn't get out with her as much. So now I'm going to try and see what will homeschooling be like for her if we are out and about and involved with other families, you know.
When we were speaking earlier, both of you have said that educating our children comes with grave responsibilities. And I don't know if homeschooling is graver or not than sending them to regular school. What do you mean? What are the grave responsibilities that come with?
I think when you said something at the beginning, you were saying how you tried to decide what was the best thing to do for your children. I think every set of parents face that. They want to do what's right for their children. And everyone has to prayerfully discern. Every family's in such different situations that you know, I'm not proposing that homeschool's the answer for everybody, but it's definitely an option. And you would want your children to grow in their faith, to grow academically, so you do what you can, and you discern what you can, prayerfully discern, to try to provide for your children the best opportunities that you can so that they can love God and love their neighbor.
So you want them to grow to be responsible, contributing members
fully
of
alive,
society,
yeah.
fully
Fully alive.
fully
Yeah.
alive, which is actually the name of the elementary religion textbook in Ontario.
Oh, is that right?
It's called Fully Alive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
But it's true. You want your children to be grounded in their faith, because also, you know, we are facing a world where faith is being challenged, and so you want them to grow strong roots in the faith. Now, if you have a school that can provide that, and you as parents can, you know, work with the school, I think that's great. And if you find that at home you can provide that, and the kids can stay strong and rooted in their faith, I mean that's great. And that's your goal, is to help your kids. I mean, you don't want to control them, and you don't want to impose on them, but you want them to see their faith as life.
Yeah.
It's a relationship with a loving God.
yeah, and ultimately I think you can do, whether you choose to homeschool or not, you're still called to do that. And we're called, I mean, the children's first faith educators, or are the parents at home. So in a sense, we are all homeschooling, in a sense.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
that's for sure. I mean, you can't get away from it in the end.
Yeah.
Your children are home with you a lot.
Yeah.
If you
And
don't,
they're learning, whether you're consciously teaching or not, they're learning.
Yeah.
And
They're
you're
absorbing.
probably tutoring your kids when they have problems in
Yes.
the evening with their homework. And homeschooling is very much like that.
Yeah.
You're sitting side by side and you're working with them, you know.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a little break. I hope this conversation is as interesting to you as it is to me, but don't go anywhere. It's a short break. When we come back, we're going to meet a homeschooling family in Texas, and we're also going to meet Louis and Mary's eldest daughter, Nicole. So stay tuned.
Let us know your perspective. Email us at perspectives@saltandlighttv.org or reach us by mail. Perspectives at Salt and Light Television, 114 Richmond Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C 1P1, or call us toll free at 1-888-302-7181. Let your perspective be heard.
Welcome to the Mesick home. Here, school is not much different than at a regular school, except for the advantage that students can work independently and at their own pace. In the classroom, 16-year-old Abby, 13-year-old Matthias, and 11-year-old Charlotte use various online resources to study subjects from Western civilization and Latin to philosophy. Using these allows them to communicate with teachers and other students across the country and collaborate with them on assignments. 6-year-old Genevieve, 5-year-old Grace, and 4-year-old Annabelle work through math, phonics, memorize poems, and even classifications of life. The Mesicks also participate in other activities outside the home, such as sports, dance, and music.
That was a day in the life of the Mesick family in Round Rock, Texas. And now we're joined via Skype by Nicole Richard, who is Mary and Louis' eldest daughter. Nicole, welcome to the program. You've been listening in. I guess I have to ask you, so how was it for you being homeschooled?
I mean, I liked it. I was homeschooled all the way from kindergarten to grade 12. During high school, I think pretty much every year we kind of had the conversation, okay, do we want to keep doing this? Do we want to keep homeschooling, or do you want to consider some other options? And we, we discerned that. And for me, it always felt right just to keep homeschooling. And yeah, I enjoyed it. When I was in elementary, I would sort of work really hard in the morning and get all my school done by like noon, and then go play with my friends for the afternoon. And then in high school, it was nice because I could just do extracurricular activities at whatever time of the day they were offered, and then sort of work my schedule around that, do my book work. sort of whenever I needed to. So that was really nice.
So you were able to learn more independently, learn an important skill of, I guess, self-discipline.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you would go and play with your friends. So these friends, were they also homeschooled, or were they friends that were going to regular public school? And if so, what did they think of, you know, the Richard family, the homeschooled kids?
A lot of my friends were homeschooled growing up. But I think till I was 10, our neighborhood, we lived on a street with a lot of kids, like I don't know, 30 kids or something.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they would get out of school at, 3 or something, and we'd go play with them. And I probably, there were some kids who would, we'd say, oh, we're homeschooled. Oh, what's that? That's weird. Do you get to do it in your pajamas? That kind of thing. And you do get some funny questions. But I mean, then they just kind of forgot about it, and they were just our friends, right? So.
Right. You just finished fourth year university, so how did you find the transition? Did you stay living at home while you went to university, or?
Yes, yeah, I've been living at home the whole time.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what to expect for the transition. Like, a lot of people told me, oh, it's going to be really hard for you being homeschooled, and
right.
Other people told me there'd be no problem. For me, I found that because I had been used to the sort of the self-disciplined learning, I was able to transition fairly easily, and I really enjoyed university. It was it was a little bit, university is difficult, but it was almost easier because instead of me, having a textbook and trying to teach myself out of the textbook, all of a sudden I had also a teacher who would tell me what was in the textbook and teach it. So that was
right.
fun.
Now, Mary and Louis, one of the, I think, concerns a lot of people have is this whole idea of socialization. And so how did you, I guess, navigate that aspect to make sure that they had friends who were not homeschooled, that they were involved in sports or church, or I'm not sure, that sort of community aspect?
Well, it's just, again, it's, you have neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
We got our kids involved in a local Pembina, well, it was a choir. It was a community
yes.
choir for school kids. So they were in there right from the beginning, right till they graduated, and they had that community.
Did they do sacramental preparation with the parish, for example?
For confirmation.
Okay.
At least for my son. I prepared it because it was just part of our religion at home.
Okay.
But they had, involved in church and in youth groups, and it was just far and varied, really.
Yeah, one of the most common questions we had is the one you just mentioned.
Yeah.
How your kid, I guess people can imagine that you keep all your kids at home and they're not with anyone else, and they'll turn out to be freaks or something. But well, it just simply isn't the case. And with all the homeschooling families that we know, it's I guess there could be a case where there's family like that, but I've never met them.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just so many opportunities to meet other kids, and
right.
to be other adults, whether it's a choir or a hockey team or.
And different levels, which I think is very healthy, that you're dealing not just with people your age, which is what happens in regular school most of the time, but you're dealing with people different ages. Maybe if I can ask all three of you, starting with you, Nicole, what would you say was the biggest challenge for you being homeschooled?
In high school, the self-discipline aspect of it became more difficult. Which was, it was good because it made me, I had to set my own deadlines. Okay, I'm going to do
yes.
the math test on this day, and I will do it. And then also being able to sort of be scheduled like that, but then deal with the interruptions that happen. There's 5 kids in the family, somebody gets sick, or there's some
right.
kind of event that's happening, and then it throws your schedule off, and then you have to kind of deal with that and just accept that that's part of life. So that sort of tension between
right.
trying to keep on schedule and then
did you
having
find,
life, yeah.
Sorry, did you find as the eldest daughter that you had to help with the little ones? Or was your mom good at that?
Well, we all kind of helped, the older ones always helped the younger ones, which was great too, because then it forces you, when you teach something, you learn it way better.
Right.
And so that was, I think that's actually one of the big benefits of homeschooling actually, is that, you don't
yeah.
forget what you learn because you're always
yeah.
helping others, yeah.
Now, were there any challenges for you as the main teacher and for you as the
secondary teacher?
I think the biggest challenge is that it is easy to burn out
yeah.
in the beginning if
yeah.
you don't know how to listen to your body. And I think, I learned to see this in perspective of faith, that, I have a God who has called me to this. He's not calling me to burn out. He's going
right.
to He wants to give me life. So if there are days, I'm raising 5 children and some were babies at the time, if I'm just too tired to sit and do academics, it may be more life-giving that we all just go out to the park for the day, and
Right.
you know, maybe when Louis comes home, he can work with anything that
Yeah.
he wants to work
Okay.
with. And so I had to learn to pace myself and
Right.
really listen so that I could maintain a joyful presence.
Yeah.
Because it's easy, if you get tired, you're no good to anybody, you know.
Yeah.
And I went through those years, so I learned big lessons in how to listen and
Yeah.
see God guiding me through
Did you
it.
find any challenges?
Well, with respect to what Mary's sharing, because for me, I'm at work, the challenges were, you know, on a practical level, not as much, but I did see, especially when we were having children, because we started homeschooling Nicole when she was 4, but we were still, more children were coming. And
Yeah.
so this was a challenge. We were having more children, which is tiring all by
Mhm.
itself,
Mhm.
and then homeschooling. So I don't think I did as much as I could have, but to help your wife. In other words,
Right.
like go out tonight. Just take a break. I'll be home with the kids. I'll put them to bed and go with your friends. And
Right.
you know, we did a little of that, but I wish I would have done
So
more.
you really have to work as a team, support each other. It's a partnership. It's a marriage, but it's also a parenting and teaching partnership. And I'm sure people ask you this all the time. If someone they have small children, not quite school age yet, they're asking all these questions. What would be the one piece of advice that you would give them, Mary,
If they're considering
if they're
starting?
considering homeschooling?
Yeah, I think that the one I just gave was, if you
Yeah.
decide to, then listen to your body and watch the kids. Like, if you're not there to control their lives and impose something on them. You're there to journey with them in this learning of faith and academics. And you have to be able to balance and trust that God's going to lead you. Even if you take time out,
Mhm.
it's going to all balance out at some point. And we need to just walk carefully and lovingly, and that's a big thing,
Right.
I think.
Wow. And Louis, any advice?
Well, it's hard to top that. And she'd probably have the stronger advice. I could give advice to dads, and I
Yeah.
just gave it.
Yes.
Be sensitive to your wife. I think it's, for those who choose to homeschool, I think it's a worthy thing to do, but be supportive, be loving, be there, and let her tell you her day, no matter how tired you are from work.
Yes.
Let her tell you what's happened and listen to
Yes.
it and interact and be
Yeah.
a support.
And you, Nicole, having been homeschooled, what advice would you have for a parent that would be asking, I wonder what that's like?
I've had a wonderful experience homeschooling. God called me to marriage. I would homeschool or discern homeschooling my kids for sure. I don't, I hear, like, I think my parents said this earlier. I've heard some say, every Christian family should homeschool, and I don't think that, but I think every family should consider it because it is a beautiful option, and I think you have to be intentional about how you go about doing it, and make sure your kids have the extracurricular stuff and they have the social opportunities, but I mean it's a beautiful thing if you're following God's will and then that's what God presents to your life. I think it's a beautiful option.
Yeah, no, I love that all three of you have used the word discern. We're not saying that you should or shouldn't homeschool. It's an option. There are lots of benefits to school, homeschool, private school, public school, as long as you as parents are involved. Anyway, we like to conclude our conversation by reflecting on the Word of God. We leave the last word to the one who is the Word. And so I'd like to read an excerpt from the 2nd chapter of Luke. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. So that's from the 2nd chapter of Luke, verses 41 to 52. Mary, would you like to offer a brief reflection?
I think about our children as having a vocation. Jesus sensed his vocation, but maybe it wasn't the right timing. So maybe he came back with his parents and lived obediently to them. And I see that as not parents, again, controlling, but that we're sensitive to the vocation of our children in the sense that we're there just to really again, give them life, walk and journey with them in a love relationship, and then be ready to release them to do what they're called to do in their life.
Thank you. Louis?
Well, just the fact that he was there alone, I was just thinking, if he was 12 years old, he would have been grade 7 in our terms. It must have been a wonderful family to grow up in. I mean, he had so much confidence, and I realize he's both God and human, but in his humanity, what a wonderful example of confidence and a very positive reflection on Mary and Joseph.
Thank you. Nicole?
Actually, I was going to say something very similar to my mom, just that it's a beautiful thing to see an example of the family, the Holy Family, where Jesus is sensing his own call and trying to discern that even from a young age, and his parents maybe don't understand it all the time, but Mary treasures these things in her heart, and she presumably helps to try to discern, okay, what is this? How can we see how God is leading my son, and what is God calling him to? And
good, thank you. Thank all three of you for sharing your story and your insights with us. If you missed any portion of this program or to watch any Perspectives Weekly programs, visit us on our website, saltandlighttv.org/perspectives, and also visit us on Facebook. That's where we post our question of the week. You know, we cannot do the show without your perspective. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next week.